A very good evening to you and welcome to Power Brief, this being the 8th day of the month of July, the year 2021. And last week we looked into the status of the higher education in Kenya. And tonight we take another trajectory where our focus goes on politics. Here we are looking onto the succession politics. Succession politics is a different type of politics, just from different ones like that one of the year 2017 and those ones that have been there before. My name is Cornelius Omuse and our guest on the show is Mr. Edwin Kegoli, who is a political scientist. Also we have Tabitha Ogutu, who is a leadership and a governance expert. We also have Mr. Edgar Kosgei, who is a political and a policy analyst. Join us on this conversation as we look into all that is surrounding the debates and the conversations that are going all through in the Republic of Kenya. This conversation is also live on our Facebook page, which is KAK TV Kenya, and YouTube is KAK TV Kenya. Gentlemen and lady, welcome to Power Brief tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Hope you've been well since, keeping yourself safe from COVID-19 and other issues. And just today we've been looking into the newspaper about the policewoman who is actually being accused of leaving trail of blood and death behind her. So these are conversations that came up yesterday from Ombeta. That is a lawyer, the criminal lawyer, or the lawyer who deals with criminal matters. He was saying that let's give this person an opportunity to present herself without starting to judge her before she appears before courts to know whether she's okay or she's not okay. Just beginning from Mr. Kosgei, is the society trying to put salt to the injury, or that is the way things should be approached?
Thank you for having me. I'm with Cliff Ombeta in this. Everyone is innocent until proven guilty before the law of the country. She might be undergoing a lot of problems. These are premeditated killings. She planned them, she lured the victims and killed the victims. People are going through terrible things, Omuse, and we have to give them an opportunity to come before us and to tell us what is happening. The law is going to take its own course. She's going to be charged with murder, and people even are not going to look at the causes, what caused it. But she's just going to be charged. But the relationships in the country or in the world are going through serious things. You can't know what I am going through as a person. I can't know what you're going through. But we all tend to fix ourselves before we come out of our houses and before we go to the world. The world is tough. Yes.
Thank you. Miriam, last year when lockdowns were imposed, we had cases, and I remember even KAK TV with other partners participated towards finding solutions on the issues to do with sexual and gender-based violence. And one of the causes of this thing was attributed to mental health, and even the president himself declared this to be one of the national disasters by then, and even up to right now. The other day when he was in France, he still spoke about the same thing. I've been seeing you vocal on this matter of the mental health. What do you think is the impediment towards us achieving the best for this one? Because in as much as campaigns are happening to combat it, but things seems to be getting out of hand, not necessarily basing on what is happening with this policewoman.
All right. Thank you very much, Omuse, for having us once again. The issue around mental health, I think, is a very serious and a critical issue that needs to be really looked into with the government and even stakeholders as a whole. First of all, before you're a police, you're a human being. And just like any other human being, these police people, they go through all the issues of mental health. They have family problems, they have stresses at work. Things are not just working for them with the coronavirus and the effects there, which we're experiencing right now. So when the public is coming out and condemning this kind of people without finding literally the root cause, like what Edgar said, why they are, because a normal person will not act like that. You don't know what has really, generated that kind of anger in them, that they have to, get it out. Like they have not been taught of how to release their anger. So as a police, what they see is the weapon they have. And that is what the mechanism they feel that is defense, that they can release the bad energy in them. So I think a system, for example, should be laid in place in the police department that will ensure that after their work and all that, even before, we should not just look at this thing after it has happened. What are we doing to ensure that the police mental health is taken care of? As a country, I will say that we've seen even cases of that woman, for example, last year, who murdered all her kids, in cold blood. That was and she was a teacher. We will not say that this was as a result of ignorance or illiteracy. She knew better, but because mental health has become such an issue that as a society we think or we say that some things are just normal, and we don't look at them from the perspective of why are people behaving like animals. From that point, then we are losing it. So it's upon us, of course, to talk. If you're having an issue of mental health, or you're feeling depressed and you're going through that, and you feel like all you want to do is take your life, some of them go to the extent of taking their lives, or take the life of our loved ones, and even the society, because the responsibility of your neighbor is your responsibility, then you need to also talk to somebody, or you can visit these centers. But apart from that, let us see the government literally really addressing that issue, because if we are going to just go through COVID-19 without addressing the issue of mental health, I don't think you're going to be in the right place after this.
Thank you.
Right.
Mr. Kegoli, Miriam has spoken about the government. Kosgei also briefly but usually said haitakuwa kila wakati ya kwamba serikali saidia. At the family level, have we taken proper initiatives? Kosgei is a very talkative person, as your brother or your son or your husband or someone that you work closely with. Then you see the person is withdrawn. He doesn't talk to people. Maybe he doesn't even pick calls when he's called, and there's a difference of how he reacts. Then you turn out and say, tangu huyu aende Nairobi siku hizi mairingo imemwingia sana, he doesn't want to associate with the people. But probably something is not happening in the right way. Do you think at the family level, are we doing the right to ensure that we arrest this situation before we call the government to assist?
Thank you so much, and my glory to God for the chance of being at CAC TV today. I will borrow a lot from my sister's submissions. Kenyans are hurting. Kenyans are depressed. There is a lot that is happening right at the family level. People are burdened by the state of economy. People lack somebody to talk to. People lack options. People are overrun by emotions. And this will always have a consequence on societal breakdown. And this is a consequence of the killings that we are witnessing. It's just a little tip-off and somebody will blow up. So what do we do? And it goes back to what she had said. We need a multisectoral approach so that we take care of these things. These people who are depressed by the worsening state of economy will not heal just on counseling. We will need robust economic interventions that will give them hope at the end of the day. Because if I don't have something to eat, how can you counsel me? I need food. I need an income. I need to take care of my family. My family is crying. They're wailing. They don't have food. So before I go to talk to a counselor somewhere, I need an economic income. And that's why my sister talked about multi-sectoral approach. So before we take care of the symptoms, let us address the root cause. And as long as we are running away from the source, the genesis of the problems, we are not going to help this country. We are going to get into more dire and more worsening and debilitating situations that will impact us just for the worst. So we need to come together as a country. Let us all ye come together. Let us reason together. Can we find the problems? Can we find solutions to them? Let us not address or recommend like pain relieving measures, but let us tackle the root cause. Let us get rid of like the source.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kegoli, Miriam,
Tabitha.
and also Tabitha and Kosgei. Now, we couldn't just jump to succession politics and people are not stable mentally, including ourselves
Oh,
here.
yeah.
We had to touch on that. And thank you so much for your submissions. The policymakers and even the implementers and the entire community are watching, and hopefully they'll take into consideration of that. Now we get into the succession politics. Last week we saw what happened. The likes of Senior Counsel Haminwa, the likes of Christian Andole, and all those people who are at the Court of Appeal. They submitted whatever they submitted, and on the 20th of next month, the verdict will be out from the Court of Appeal regarding the BBI debate that has been here for a very long period of time. But again, what is happening on the streets? People are trying to look into the possibilities of having a referendum before the next general election, because where we are remaining with 1 year and some months to 9th of August, the year 2022, when the general elections will be held. And by the time the verdict will be coming out from the Court of Appeal, that one will be
August.
It will be August 20th. That is a number of days after the elections will have been held. That is next year. Now, what are the possibilities of we as a country having a referendum when the Court of Appeal, whichever the outcome, if the Court of Appeal talks of yes, you can proceed, what is the possibilities?
Almost this country is ruled by the law, and it is ruled by the constitution. There are things we have to follow as Kenyans. Article 255, 256, and 257 stipulates on which direction we should go in having a referendum in place. Article 256, subsection I think 5, gives us how we are going to conduct the referendum. It is saying that the president shall request the IEBC to conduct elections within 90 days. So those 90 days, you count them from now, August 20th, if we are given a green light to conduct elections. After that, the IEBC has to be satisfied that the bill has been approved, and they are given 30 days. That is subsection B of Article 256. So you have 120 days of just being in limbo. That will take us up to February 20th. That is when now we will have conducted election, referendum, and we'll have now the law in place. Now, after enacting that law of the referendum, is it going to take effect? Is it possible to have a referendum in February and to have an election in August? It is possible if we have resources to waste. But people will argue that we do not have that time, we do not have resources to waste. Will the 70 constituencies come into effect? How much time will the IEBC have in effecting the 70 constituencies so that it can be effected in 2022? Some politicians say constituencies can be made in even 1 month or 2 months. But will it have an effect? Referendum is possible. But first, after asking ourselves many questions that we asked the Supreme Court, the Court of Appeal. One, is the president part of the popular majority? And many other questions that we asked, but let's wait for the outcome.
Thank
but
you
if
so much.
it happens, it can.
Thank you. Now, Tabitha, Kosgei has talked of there is a possibility that this referendum can be held before the next general election, whatever the outcome, or if the Court of Appeal and probably the Supreme Court gives the go-ahead. Because remember, if the Court of Appeal will give a go-ahead, There are those ones who are still opposed, and they have a constitutional right to proceed to the Supreme Court of Kenya to present their grievances. Now, suppose it goes even to the end and it never goes through. There is a time Atwoli and even those ones who are the proponents of BBI were talking that the reason as to why we came up with the BBI was to stop the issue of post-election violence every now and then. And therefore, there's no need for us to have an election unless we have proper mechanisms to curb our occurrence of chaos after the general election. Do you think that argument holds water?
First of all, I like your question and the way you've put it. Because why should we go to an election, for example? Right now, for example, let me just, like, you're seeing the way the political arena is heated. And if at all we were to have an election, let's say, for example, this year, the outcome or the aftermath is very definite that there's going to be war. Because politicians are so divided and the ideologies are such that they are just making the citizens, be in opposition and things like that. And if today we're going to have an election, obviously this country is going to be, in fairness. So therefore, it goes without saying that, just like Atwoli said, there has to be a mechanic in place or mechanisms that are put in place to ensure that we do not have lives being lost after every general election, which is a key agenda in the 9-point agendas of the BBI. Me, from where I'm seated, by the way, I don't know why we are having back and forth issues about the BBI, because of course those who are in opposition of it, they have the right to oppose it because it's their constitutional right. But at the same time, their grounds for not accepting the BBI, I find that it's just a thin line. That if they could just sit down and talk about it, and so we'll not be having, because resources are being wasted, because also them, they're wasting their resources going to the court, they'll be going to the Supreme Court after and all that stuff. So Kenya is also in a system whereby we are not able to do some of other things because we are really concentrating on what next with the BBI. So this is it. They say that the president, for example, as a president, is a president and therefore is not supposed to have initiated any popular bill in this country. That takes us aback as a country. And this is what really the opponents of BBI think why the BBI should not be discussed or should not go ahead. The citizen, the president of Kenya, according to Article 137 of the Constitution, is clear. The president, you have to be a Kenyan citizen by birth for you to be a president. So they have to revisit that, so that even if we are moving forward, they're not in support of the BBI, then let us talk about what is in the BBI more that we do not need and should be removed or should be added so that we move forward as a country.
Thank you, Tabitha. Now, Kegoli, when we were talking about mental health, all of you actually came into concurrence that let's address the root cause. What is causing it? Not coming up with the counseling, and you've not really seen what causes it. Why has Kenya been having the root cause of violence after every general election? So that probably we can get to understand why Miriam is worried that let's not have an election before we have BBI. And if so, how is it coming in maybe to address that chaos? We'll come to you. We'll come to you.
Not before we have BBI. Don't misquote me.
I really appreciate for that very important question. And I want to say this. When you look at 2007 elections, there was violence in this country, not because we had a winner and a loser, but because there were claims of a flawed system of electing leaders. They said the presidential election was so flawed, and one of the candidates said that he had been rigged out. And of course, everybody knows what happened. That alone brought the country's economy to its knees. And that was well buttressed by the global financial crisis. So Kenya was dealing with a ravaged economy by post-electoral violence against an international pandemic of the global financial crisis. So we were dealing with two things. In 2013, we still had the claims of a rigged process. The process. 2017, we still were dealing with the issue of electoral malpractice, the system of electing in, especially the president. That is where the problem lies in terms of elections in this country. If we are not strong enough to accept to be defeated, if we are not strong enough to say this thing is not a matter of life and death, let us compete on ideas, let us compete on an agenda, let us debate issues and not tribe. If we let IEBC do what it's supposed to do, this country will not degenerate into violence. Let the person who win. Free, fair. If we interfere with IEBC as an independent body, in 2022, we will still be back here discussing about electoral malpractice. So, Cornelius, as long as we are still interested in interfering in the electoral matters, as long as we are underfunding the IEBC, as long as we are keeping IEBC understaffed in terms of getting commissioners in place at the right time, as long as we are not giving IEBC the maximum support that they should be having ahead of 2022, and Cornelius, imagine, IEBC as we speak, it is yet to be fully constituted, though the process is underway. Right now, they should be doing, like, just checking everything is in place. But when this commission has come, it will be a rush against 2022, because the issues of procurement, the issues of checks and balances, the issues of making sure that the system is functioning, and putting in place mechanisms and structures that will be tamper-proof, so that nobody will infiltrate the IBC system to regain leaders. If we do not have integrity ahead of 2022, we'll still be back here. And just like my sister was saying, should we degenerate into violence in 2022? It will be more dire than it was in 2005.
Thank you, Edwin. I'll still come back to you briefly, Mr. Edgar, before we go for a quick commercial break. Do you concur with him and other players who are arguing that constituting an IEBC 1 year to the general election is not really enough to guarantee a proper, smooth transition and preparation for a general election?
Elections are the essence of democracy. They ensure that people exercise their will. That is where, when you say people are sovereign, that is where they exercise it. There is no other avenue. If you corrupt it, then you corrupt the sovereignty of the people. When are elections free? When one vote is equals to one man, that is fairness. Yeah? So when governments around the world and individuals around the world have tried to interfere with elections to show that their power or their policies are the ones that have been affected by the people. Even if IEBC is constituted today and they do their work very well and the votes are counted, how is it fair when it is accurate? Omusa has voted and his vote has been counted as 1, not 2. That's when it is fair. For me, I don't have a problem if they're having interviews right now. But let them count my vote as 1. And let us exercise our will as a people. Let them call us supreme through elections. Let them not joke around with us.
Thank you very much. We
Yes.
go for a quick commercial break. Tonight we are looking into the succession politics, because constitutionally President Uhuru Kenyatta is supposed to retire next year, which means that a new regime has to be ushered into the Kenyan governance system. That's why Mr. Edgar Kosgei, Tabitha Ogutu, and also Mr. Kegoli Edwin are with us in studio. We are looking into the general preparation of this general election. What is the role of the government? What is the role of the citizens and other key players to ensure that there is a smooth transition from one level to another? Keep it on CAC TV and do not go far. Kwa unyenyekevu mkuu na kukubali mapenzi ya Mwenyezi Mungu, tunatangaza kifo cha Kasisi Godfrey Gathuku Nyaga wa kanisa la Kipresbitari ya Umoja Seattle huko Marekani. Kasisi Gathuku ni mumewe Nancy Njeri Gathuku, ni babake Mercy Julia Wangui Gathuku na Beth Wanjiku Bidwell, ni baba mkwe wa Kasisi Bob Bidwell wa Marekani, ni nduguye Ruth Wanjiru Ndwati, marehemu Dorcas Mugure Nyaga, Kasisi Daktari John Kimani Nyaga wa PCA Imani Marekani, mzee mshauri Benson Kinywa Nyaga na Kasisi Samuel Njenga Nyaga wa kanisa la PCA Parokia Ruringu, ni shemejie John Ndwati, Lydia Mwangi, Josephine Kimani, Martha Kinywa na Virginia Njenga. Kasisi Godfrey ni babuye Jerina na Michelle. Tarehe ya mazishi itatangazwa baadaye. Kutoka chumba cha habari cha KAK tunawapa jamaa na marafiki pole. Welcome back and many thanks for tuning in to KAK TV on Power Brief as we try to look into the preparations of the succession politics which will supposed to be taking place in the year 2022 August in the general election. Gentlemen and lady, before we went for a commercial break, we had actually looked into the preparations about how these elections are supposed to be held at the IEBC, and now we come deep into players. Major or key players into these elections. And as it stands right now, we are seeing camps aligning themselves. We have one camp, that is of the Deputy President William Ruto. We have the camp of the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. And we have the camp of Musalia Mudavadi, Gideon Moi, and Kalonzo Musyoka, and Moses Wetangula. Okay, there are speculations, or there were speculations, that the Musalia camp will come together with Raila. But again, there is a topic that has come up about the sharing of the political parties fund, which has brought a disintegration or a conflict between the NASA crew. Before we get into the NASA crew, Kosgei,
yes, sir,
is a political parties funds act doing the right thing, probably by only having two parties, by the proportion of the representatives in the National Assembly receiving funding, then the rest mujipange? Is it doing the right thing?
Yeah, as I said earlier, we are ruled by law as a country. And Political Parties Act dictates how they are going to share the spoil. Political parties are public, they are owned by the public, and they are funded by the public. It was put like that so that we do not have other political parties that have numbers in the public, in the National Assembly, that have numbers, so that they don't get disadvantaged, even if they're in the opposition. ODM has numbers in Parliament, and now they're entitled to more funds than the sister parties in the NASA coalition. In the spirit of sharing, they should sit down as brothers who brought this cake to the table and share it. But the law does not support it. If they had gone to court, they would have lost it, because the courts deal with the law. But in the spirit of we helped each other come to the table, they should share this, and they should consider the small parties. Yeah, because it was NASA coalition. It wasn't ODM alone. There is Musalia. Even if we think Musalia did not bring anything to the table, even if we think Kalonzo is a community leader, even if we think Wetangula is a tribal leader, they came together as NASA principals, so they should speak together. But there was a fallout. Mostly there was a fallout. But we understand them. That is politics, and that's the nature of politics. Let them survive.
Thank you. Now, Tabitha,
Yes.
before we reach where Kosgei has taken us, yes, taken us very far to that destination. But again, my concern, or any other person's concern, is this, that suppose there was a law that any registered political parties, because whatever they receive actually comes from the taxpayers' money, that any registered political party is entitled to some sort of funding, so that we do not really come to meet those topics like briefcase parties. I don't know how do they look like. I saw him coming here with a briefcase. He'll tell us whether he was carrying one. But again now, from your end, do you think it's time all political parties that are registered get some funding to avoid what has happened and is making Kosgei to sweat here?
Right. Actually, I really agree with the sentiments of Kosgei. Kenya is a multi-party democracy, and as it is, I don't think we should look at the funding of the parties in terms of which party is major, which party is a key national player. Because at the end of the day, you do not form a party to remain, like even when you give a birth to a child, it just starts, the child grows, you know, they crawl, and then they become grown-ups, and all this goes on. So it should also be funding that encourages the parties to be able to carry out their functions and to be able to do, you know, things that will make them also reach the levels of the national parties. By that, we'll ensure that we have party democracy and also constitutional democracy in this country. So like what Edgar said, yeah, as much as the constitution or the party policy does not support these parties having the funding, but in the spirit of sharing, they should get something.
Thank you,
Right.
Tabitha. Now, Kegoli, what Kosgei and Tabitha have tried to bring out still takes some of our minds into one thing, that the law talking of the higher or the numbers that you have in the National Assembly and the Senate is what determines the allocation that you receive. It's bringing one idea that happens in some of these countries like the United States, that you're either Democrat or you're Republican. Why should we have 70 political parties going to 100 in such a small country like Kenya? Isn't it time that you're either in Democrat or Republic, not here in Kenya, but you're either in this alignment or that alignment?
Well,
To avoid these noises that are coming up, oh, gentlemen, blah, 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 blah. Yeah.
Kenya is a democratic country.
So is America,
We
remember?
are governed by the rule of law.
Yeah.
There is freedom of choice. There is political freedom. I can choose to join whichever party I may wish. And there was a chance for Kenya to do like Americans do. There was the Jubilee Party and there was NASA coalition. The essence, according to Deputy President, was to make Jubilee a national party. And NASA also in their organization, if they could have continued that way, like into 2022, then we'd be looking at a country that is led by two dominant parties. But then again, there are political phrases that come into play. So, like the issue of, you know, the political parties, you know, allocating money to ODM, not NASA. So that's the difference. And, you know, now NASA coalition's coming and say, we did this thing. But then again, when they were running, they never ran as NASA because somebody went on the ballot because they were ODM, ANC, or Ford Kenya. So if they were running as NASA, it is Raila Odinga NASA, not ODM. It would make sense. But he was on the ballot as ODM. So moving forward, it is difficult to roll this country back before 1992 when there was clamor for multi-party. We can only move forward. We can only make progress. So moving forward, to avoid fractional parties, you know, maybe it's time we get two dominant parties that people will identify with. But then again, it is up to Kenyans to decide. And it's up to the political leaders to lead us into such a situation. We had a chance in 2017, NASA, Jubilee Party and NASA coalition. But then again, we are not likely to see the same come 2022. We are going to have maybe different political outfits. So this is a bit difficult to make Kenya, like a two-party state. So it's up to Kenyans to decide like which political, because you can see political parties are still coming up, and it is not a bad thing because we are a democratic country and we choose to do things as we may want to do them.
Thank you. Now, still on the preparation of these succession politics of the year 2022, we are witnessing what we've had since last year, that is a COVID-19. And we've had variants. I'm told right now we are in variant 3, it's moving to another one. And probably these waves might be popping up, coming up one after another. And remember, an election can only be postponed as per the constitution when the country is at war. Probably the makers of this constitution were having it in mind that even if it's any other thing, there's how technology can come in to probably be to mitigate the severity or what is supposed to be done at that level. Now, if this continues, are we seeing a possibility of not continuing to have political rallies? And if so, how probable will these assure a proper results where people have never had sessions of not campaigning physically, meeting physically, and then achieving the right results?
Omuse, why don't we shake hands, the two of us, because of the spread of COVID-19? Why don't I come close to you because of the spread? What will happen if we start campaigns, rigorous campaigns? There'll be contact, there'll be shaking of hands, the people will move close to each other, and we will have another pandemic altogether. The government has tried to vaccinate people. The only way out of this problem is vaccination. The only way to have elections freely is vaccination. The government vaccinated people from March, right? From March. Up to now, it has vaccinated 1 million. The people who have had the first dose are 1 million. The second dose, those people who have had the second dose, we have around 500,000. So the people who have had complete vaccination is 500,000. Uhuru Kenyatta is in his broadcast said he will be able to vaccinate 26 million, that is adult population, by next year, June. That's where our hope lies. That everyone by June will be vaccinated. Those who can vote, those who can line up, those who can entangle, should have been vaccinated so that we can have a free country. COVID-19 has brought us down, yes. But we cannot put in place those guidelines that we were given successfully. People were laid off. People went home. People were working from home. Supply chain was interrupted. Transportation was interrupted. Transport sector used to carry, even right now, carry half the capacity. Borders, there is congestion because you have to produce a certificate. So the economy is worse. But what is the way out? Vaccination.
Thank you. Now, coming into that, as you've given some of the possibilities of what is supposed to be done, and probably if we can achieve, or the country can achieve, proper results, if campaigns are maybe done online, voting online, and all that as it comes to that. But again, as it comes to these succession politics, most of the politicians are talking of, we have to talk of economic recovery. And probably to begin from you, Mr. Kegoli, when a new regime comes in from next year, August, that is from 10th of August, moving onwards, some of these economic shocks that this regime is likely to meet in the country.
May God give wisdom and grace to the president that will take over this country in 2022. because the president will be faced with a situation that needs economic turnaround, growth and development. COVID-19 has hit a major dent on our economy. We've had massive layoffs. We've had salary reductions. We've had young people who've not been having a job. And now, on top of this pandemic, there are those Kenyans who've been rendered permanently jobless. You can see how insecurity is rising in this country. Everybody is trying to find a way to survive. Government is taxing Kenyans without taking care of the economic situation that we are facing as a country. When you have a regime that taxes Kenyans without creating an environment that will allow business to thrive, that would allow people to have disposable income as to facilitate, transaction in an economy. When you stifle transaction, you are denting the chances of the gross domestic product growing. Our country cannot double its exports because we are not incentivizing farmers. We are not enhancing service sector. We are taxing too much. Kenyans cannot breathe. Kenyans do not have spare income to save, to invest. Businesses are closing down. Look, the president that will take over should come with robust economic policy propositions that will now take care of the grassroots. President Kenyatta is leaving behind a legendary infrastructure. Look at the roads across the city. Look at the roads across the country. That is secondary policy in terms of economic growth and development. The primary policies touch on the grassroots, touch on that common mwananchi down there. Those are the people we need to empower. We have banks in this country that have risen because of the grassroots activities. The hustlers are the people who make people rich because they don't fear to spend. They have that 100 bob, they have that 50 shillings that they want to spend. And when you spend, you're growing an economy. So why can't we make it easier for them to borrow loans? Why can't we make the environment conducive for them to do businesses? Walk around the Nairobi CBD, you'll hear business people crying about the rates that they are paying. The county government is like collecting too much for them to grow and reinvest, because they are being taxed by the county government. On the other hand, the national government is KRA taxman is waiting to tax them again. This leaves them with little to nothing to spend. And when, as I said, you stifle spending, you're not growing the economy. Moving forward, this is my prayer to whomever Kenyans will elect. And I fully subscribe to the ideology of empowering that common mwananchi, that farmer in the rural Kenya who works so hard and they get taxes along the way. Let us empower these people. As we broaden the economy and and put people into that taxable bracket, as we tax people so that government gets money for service delivery, they are also taking home something. They are able to save something. Let us make our banks trust young people. Because as a young man, if I walk to a bank, what they will ask me is bring a collateral, bring a payslip, bring a logbook. I don't have those things as a fresh graduate. I don't have those things as a hustler down there. So if, as William Ruto is suggesting, 30 billion will be set aside to empower these people, so that even as you pull that mkokoteni, you can walk into an establishment somewhere and you get a loan, get another mkokoteni, hire somebody to run it. That person will have an income. He will be able to give you something. That means,
but remember, everybody cannot really move the mkokoteni. Now we come to Tabitha on your part. Issues to do with taxation.
Right.
For the past 2 weeks, we've had discussions on the social media and all over how people are really talking of the rise of the tax. SMSs have been coming in from a number of service providers talking of, due to the increase of the excise duty, we're going to increase this and that. Now we look into this issue. It has been associated with so many things. But again, there we are. What do you think are some of the steps that will enable the country to get out of this trap?
Number one, I'm very happy that for once my brother Edwin here is agreeing that taxation, relaxation of taxation will enable the youth to get into business. And that is what the BBA is providing. A tax holiday of 7 years. Yeah. And that's very robust for us to get into that system, especially after this COVID period, for youth to venture into business. From where I sit, say, if you know me too well, I'm a strong advocate of agribusiness for the youth. And I believe for this country to move out of this economic time you're in after COVID, the government has to invest very robustly in agribusiness and agriculture as it is. I always argue like this, for example. Now, in the city, we have seen, like what I didn't say, that we've seen a lot of cases of robbery with violence. We've seen the youth getting into crimes so that they can get a living. Some of these youth, they never had any employment even before COVID. And now the numbers really increased because many youths have been laid off from their jobs. And others, they have their pays have been cut off. And so they cannot even sustain their family. So they have to look for, and then this country, we have that mentality of if you have one job, you do not look at other streams of income that can give you money. So with the COVID now, is when we have an awakening call that we need to do more as a country. So why is it that now the government has to deal with the issue of unemployment, for example, for the youth from the city, which is not the root cause? The root cause of unemployment is in the rural areas, where there are large tracts of land and the youth have not been sensitized enough with the right agricultural knowledge to utilize that so that they can, first of all, achieve food security, and second of all, achieve excise for the market. So that's, we do agribusiness. So it's a culture that if today I was to meet the president and the key stakeholders, I'll tell him we should invest so much and tell the youth that what education of this country has taught us that the only way for you to get out of poverty or to get money is through the white collar job is a very bad culture. Yes, and then you find that now, when they come to the city, there is no employment here. Yes, and the other day, yesterday I was saying that for us to get out of this culture, then we have to tell the youth that it's okay for you to go to, if you don't even have the money to start off, for example, you have a piece of land, they inherit it, from where I come from in Seya, I see a lot of youth, they inherit this land ancestrally, it's passed to them. You have a portion of land as a man. As women, we still have those issues, but as a man, you have a piece of land that is allocated to you. So why is it that you still look and say that, no, this cannot fit me. What I need is a proper job because I was told that I need a white-collar job.
Thank you, yes. Tabitha. Now, today I was looking at some statistics, how elections have always been faring on, how many members of parliament gets back to parliament after a general election. And like in 2017, 62% of sitting MPs were showed the door. They went home. In 2013, another percentage, above 50%, went home. But even as that happens, the same cry that was in the year 1997, you will find it in 2002, you'll find it in 2007, and you'll find it in previous years. This now brings it out that the problem could be deeper than what we are trying to see. It could be maybe with the citizens, maybe with the politicians, maybe it's a societal problem. But again, in our parting shots as we go round, beginning from Mr. Edgar.
Yes.
In summary, the role of the citizens here to ensure that from 2022 onwards, we are going to have a bit of a change or a bit of a relief in the governance sector as we move to the elections, the modalities, the steps, and the things that they're supposed to consider moving forward.
One, I've been enjoying what my friends have been saying and the questions that you've been asking. The time is really limited to answer all the questions. But I want to contribute in the taxation sector first, as a policymaker, as an aspiring... In summary,
because time has caught up with us as you make your final submission on what is the way forward.
As an aspiring candidate. One, we have seen that taxes the determining factor of the economy. The World Bank studies say that those countries with 60% tax on their citizens make the citizens suffer, and you have the economy rising at 1.1%. And there are countries like Hong Kong, like Brazil, who have lowered their taxes, and they're enjoying the economy progress of 7.3%. So as a country and as a policy maker, I am going to institute a situation whereby we are going to restructure the tax system of the country so that we can have lower taxation system. And lastly, the rates often hit around 60% of the economy. Now, what I wanted to say is the incoming president should look at how to have new markets and new jobs. And the lowest amount of payment that every employee can get, so that you can have decent salary and people can be encouraged now to go back to work. And that is what I can say.
Thank you. In 30 seconds and also in 30 seconds, your final submission. How do we reach that from 2022 we can at least say that we are not where we have always admired to be, but at least we are somewhere?
All right. A hungry nation is a hungry nation. And a citizen who cannot have a source of economic income, that is a citizen that can be easily compromised. So for us to elect a good crop of leaders come 2022, it therefore goes without saying that, as I said earlier, we need to invest, especially in our youth who are the majority voters in this country. They need to be empowered right from not the city, but from the rural areas. Let the government invest in their businesses. You know, it's not enough to start a business, but what is very important is to teach them, even invest in, training them on how to start off these businesses, maintain them, and offer the market. Let us have the value chain up to the end, which is the market, so that we do not, get into business and we cannot have a market to dispose of what we do. So basically for me, Omuse, I will say that this discussion has really been enlightening, and if a young person is watching, then I would like to tell you that, you're in the city, it's getting hard. If you have a piece of land at home that you can do agriculture in, you go back home and try something out, and you see how it goes. It's a very rich ground for us to invest in. And also, just in 1 second, also, technology and innovation is another big space for us as youth. We need to be very innovative, not just rely on the government or who else to create employment for us. We need to also be co-creators with the government and the administration.
Thank you, Kegoli. In 30 seconds, as time has actually elapsed.
The challenges we face as a country are moral problems rooted in societal indifference. And I submit to Kenyans that in the coming elections, let the voice of change sound and be felt in that ballot paper. Voting leaders who will bring change. Voting leaders who will make this country a better place and safer for us. Make MPs that will go into the National Assembly and Senate, because there will be a serious role of enacting pieces of legislation that will give life to economic empowerment, which is the question of the day. And I request to the people of Kenya, and in particular the people of Nairobi, that as you go into that ballot or polling station, vote when you have your future and that of your children in sight. Do not be swayed by those people who come to give you money to vote in a particular direction and then they leave you to suffer for the next 5 years to come. I submit to you that may the good Lord guide you as you make your decision as to whom will be your next members of parliament, because they'll be doing a very, very critical role. And as I am running for senator for Nairobi, I know that together we will work and make Nairobi a better and safer place for all of us.
He has declared
many things. That is the two gentlemen and one lady for the show tonight, as we've looked into the journey to the succession politics of the year 2022. We appreciate your comments, your feedback, and also some of your opinions on our social media platforms. For me, Cornelius Omuse, the entire Power Power Brief production team, and all those who took part in making this production a success. I say thank you, and I wish you a very good night. Let's meet next Thursday, God willing. Have a very good night.